Do you want to know a secret about our custom-made gamer desk? We never finished the built-in computer. So this is about half done, and the case was laser cut out of plywood. We're going to replace all of this with stainless steel. Here's what it looks like with most of the parts removed, except for the fans and the radiators. And here's what it looks like with everything removed. We're going to use this as a template / proof of concept to build the new one out of metal. The design is going to change a little bit, but it should be much more efficient and cool. I'm not entirely sure how to build this out of stainless steel though. So the first thing that we're going to do is a bunch of test cuts on the xTool MetalFab system. This machine is amazing, by the way. We really enjoy having it in the shop. And one of the key things about this system is how fast it can cut and help us iterate on our designs. I make a lot of mistakes and I move very quickly, and sometimes it's nice to be able to just go out and cut another piece or another part, see how it fits, make some adjustments, try again over and over. And to be honest, it took a long time to get used to making mistakes. You really need to change your way of thinking so that you don't beat yourself up over wasting material or wasting time. It's really key to success to have those mistakes and to find a better way. All right, let's check it out. This is 1mm stainless steel. I think we're gonna bump it up to 2mm just for some added strength. But you can see how clean the cuts are, how precise it all is. And this is just one of the 4 grills that we need for the entire PC case. This is one of the first grills that we cut just as a test. This is a radiator to cool down the liquid PC, and then there's 3 fans on the back. And they all bolt onto the grill from behind. And then these are the ports where the liquid goes in and out. And then this is more of an updated version. We're doing an iterative approach in this. We'll probably end up building this entire thing twice, just because there's going to be a lot of tweaks and sometimes we forget different features like some of these holes and everything. But because the MetalFab system is so fast, it's gonna be really easy to cut a bunch of these things out and then recut them out and make changes to them and keep updating. So here's the left side grill that we just cut out. That's gonna go over on this side. We need to pull this grill off because it was just temporary and attach this to the fans and the radiators. Not sure if you could tell yet, but the whole theme of this video is rapid iteration. So once we get all the pieces cut out, we're gonna start welding them together, and this piece is gonna weld together right on that edge like that. And then this whole thing's gonna go in the back. There's a bunch of other pieces that we need to get cut out first before we start welding, and we're gonna do that now. And we're using a lot of scraps from past projects that we've done. These are all from a giant dragon head that we built using the xTool MetalFab system. If you haven't seen that project, we have a bunch of posts on social media like Instagram and YouTube Shorts you can check out. Most of these small thin pieces are coming from the scraps. It takes a little bit more time than starting with a fresh piece of material, but in general it feels pretty good to recycle. So here are all the laser cut parts laid out and ready to be assembled. And we have a little makeshift welding table that we put on top of our workbench. And since the parts are so thin, we don't want to weld them to the welding table, so we're using a damp piece of MDF here. And I wouldn't recommend this for larger welds because it would produce a lot of nasty fumes from the burning MDF. And because stainless steel is not magnetic, we're using some simple tape to hold the pieces together while we're doing the tack welds. So this is the tack welded upper rim of the PC case. And now we're starting on the sides and the bottom and all the grills. And this whole process is pretty quick thanks to the tack welding feature on the laser welder. The laser just pulses very quickly to melt the 2 pieces together. And all of the assembly was done in 2 different halves to make it easier to manage and move around. Then as the last step, we take the top rim and make sure it fits correctly and then tack weld that to the rest of the case. All the parts fit together really well, and since these were all cut using a design that we did in Autodesk Fusion, there weren't any fit problems or anything like that. It just came together really quickly. Just to make sure though, we're gonna do a quick test fit on our gamer desk just to make sure everything fits correctly, that there wasn't any major mistakes. And at this point in time, we got a visit from our shop supervisor. She likes to make sure that we're wearing our shop safety gear and we're not going to do anything to upset OSHA. We also placed some of the PC components just to double check the measurements again. And everything's looking really good. I think we have enough space for all of the components that we need for this PC. But there is still one issue that we haven't figured out yet, and that is where we're going to put the power supply. Originally, I was thinking of putting it next to the graphics card on the left-hand side, but now I am not so sure. But it's definitely something that we need to figure out because I don't know a lot of PCs that can operate without a power supply. And in all honesty, the power supply isn't the sexiest part of a PC. It's very important, but it's not as cool as the motherboard or the graphics card. But figuring out the power supply goes back to the theme of this video again, which is iteration. Yeah, I know you're probably going to get tired of hearing that. So what we're doing now is test fitting the components and the wires and all of the spacing, and we're also figuring out where we've made mistakes. And you can see the lonely power supply sitting on the left-hand side without a place to go. And I'm not sure this is really visible in the shot, but in the middle of the case, there's kind of this rib bump up spot with holes on either side of it. This raised area is for the reservoir and the liquid cooling pump, but we're also going to hide a lot of the wires underneath it. Oh, and that reminds me, I need to show you what we're doing with the graphics card. So not to sound like Captain Obvious, but graphics cards are built and designed to fit into standard PC cases. But we definitely don't have a standard PC case with all of the fixtures and slots that the graphics card would screw into. So we're going to modify it with some custom parts. One being a brand new faceplate, and I'm calling it a faceplate. I don't know the real name of it. And this was our first attempt at the custom faceplate, and the measurements are a little bit off. The screw holes are not quite right. So in an iterative fashion, we're going to mark the areas that need improvements, and we're going to go back to the drawing board and do another pass. And I got to admit, we're way off into the weeds now. But we're going to get back to the main PC case here in a minute. Just wanted to show some of these smaller details that we're working on. But we did end up getting a great fit on this last design, and I think it's going to work out really well. There's a tab at the bottom that needs to be bent upwards so we can bolt it to the case, but it's looking good. All right, back to the main PC case. So this is the first version, and we studied it. We took a lot of notes and figured out where we need to improve. And now this is the next version, and it has a ton of improved features. And thankfully, it has a spot for the power supply. We decided to build a custom bracket for it and hang it off the back. This will give us more space inside the case. It gives the power supply a lot of room to cool down and doesn't get in the way of our legs or other body parts. And the channel that we mentioned before is going down the middle, and this is where all of the wires will go. They will branch off through the holes back into the case and go to each component. And we'll show more of the wiring process later in the video after we get all of the final welds done and get the case painted. So it's time to do the finish welding. We are fully welding every major seam all the way across, and we're doing 1/2 inch staggered welds on the really small and thin parts just so we don't add a lot of heat and distort them. Speaking of small parts, these little guys are M4 weld-in nuts. We used hole placements for the motherboard and graphics card to weld these in place so that all the components will be really secure to the bottom. And this is my first time using these, and to be honest, I didn't do a very good job of welding them in at first. But they work great in securing all the components to the case. And I just realized I've been saying securing quite a bit. I'll try to think of another word. And we've been test fitting things a lot just to make sure everything is correct. And this especially goes for the motherboard. This is the heart of the entire computer, and we really want to make sure this is in the right spot and secure. I just said secure again. So this is the part of the video where I admit that I made an incredibly stupid mistake. These holes are for the radiators. This is where the plumbing goes into the radiator. And I accidentally cut them out on both sides, even though the radiators are only on this side. Then in my eagerness to fix it, I capped these holes instead of these holes. This is where the radiators go. This is not where the radiators go. So now I have to re-drill out these holes and cap these holes. So I've made, 5 times the amount of work. But yeah, I make stupid mistakes like this all the time. Fortunately, we have an old piece of one of the original grills that I'm going to use as a template to get the right spacing and the right placement for the holes again. I can't believe I didn't notice that I was messing this up until I actually started grinding down the cap pieces that I welded in there. And now since we have that repair work done, we're moving on to doing the finish grinding and prep for paint work. The big goal here is to remove any sharp edges, since we're going to have a lot of cabling and wires and everything like that, and I'm going to be putting my hand in and out of this thing on a regular basis to either clean it or change out some of the computer components. Definitely don't want to get cut on any of the edges. Our workshop is really small and we don't have a spray booth, so I'm taking this out into the back to give it a full coat of automotive filler primer. This should help fill in any divots or imperfections, and it's actually really good for 3D prints also. Then once that's dry, we do another light sanding pass, and then we're going to spray it with some flat black enamel. Eventually we'd like to powder coat this, but for right now this will have to do. And here's what the final paint job looks like, and now we're going to start adding all of the components. We're starting with the fans, and then we're going to do a bunch of cabling work. Since we have 12 fans on this case, we're going to use some fan controllers, which are these little circuit boards. You can plug in 6 fans per controller, and it even has a little speed dial on it. I used to build a lot more PCs when I was younger. It was a lot of fun and kind of like an erector set, but the final reward was to be able to play games. And I was in college when the first Doom game came out. I remember going to the computer lab and everybody was setting up for a Doom tournament. This was kind of back before the internet became popular and you had to play games over LAN. And I'm really feeling old now thinking about it, but back then, a lot of people didn't even play with the mouse. It was too disorienting for them. They were playing Doom completely on the keyboard, which was odd. And I don't mean to brag, but I ended up completely crushing them. It was funny to see all these computer science majors looking over at this artist dude thinking like, how is this guy beating us at this computer game? I am such a nerd. So adding all the cables to this case took a bunch of back and forth. Some of the cables need to be switched around because of how they fit and other cables that interfered with them. And we're doing a little cabling montage here, but it's probably getting boring, so I'm going to jump ahead and show the finished result in just a sec. This is all fairly straightforward, though. We're just zip tying the cables to the hex grill underneath. And some of this is really jerry-rigged. I'm not quite sure it's actually going to boot up or not, or if there's going to be some errors in the cabling. We might have to go back to the drawing board and redo some of this stuff later on, but so far it's okay. We did make sure that we had access to USB ports, the audio ports, everything like that on the right side of the case, and then the power button's going to be on the left. Here's some of the final cabling. We're trying to keep it really nice and clean. You can see in the middle where we've added the water pump and the reservoir. We're starting to get a handle on adding a lot of the water cooling. And I think that I mentioned this before, but we had a whole project where we were designing a custom water cooler for the GPU to the left. We did probably about 2 or 3 versions on social media and we're posting about it, but it never got finished also. We might revisit that later, but we need to get this machine up and running. So we're going to go with the GPU fans right now and then swap those out for the water cooler later on. And here's another quick shot of how the power supply hangs off the back. And having the power supply here works out pretty well. It gives us a lot of space to store and hide all the wires. I do want to quickly talk about all the hardware we have here. We did get a lot of comments on social media, people making fun of the, graphics card that we chose or the motherboard. We would love to spend 5 or 10 grand on a PC. We just really don't have the money right now to invest in it. So these components really fit into our budget and was kind of the best we could get at the time. And what I would say to those folks who made those comments is, maybe be more like Ted Lasso and be more curious instead of judgmental. Yeah, I did just add a Ted Lasso reference right there, if you missed it. You got to make sure to always check your hose. We just realized the outer diameter of this flexible hose that we're using doesn't fit correctly on these fittings. It needs to be a lot thicker. We almost just flooded our entire PC because we were about to add the coolant. Fortunately, we did a pressure check with our pressure check thing. And now we need to swap all this out. Keep in mind, too, that this is all temporary. We're going to put hard tubing in later on. We even have some on hand that we're starting to do test bends with. This is just to get the machine up and running and do some more testing with it to make sure everything's correct. And then we'll start bending and getting this put in place at a later date, probably another video. But yeah, always check your hose. We're using a heat gun here just to soften up the edges of the pipe to make it easier to get around the fittings. So in this setup, we have 2 radiators in the back, a reservoir in the middle, and a pump down towards the front of the machine. So I found a leak in our Corsair radiator. It's right there. If I blow here really hard, you can hear it. I don't really know how to fix it because it's pretty significant, but it's also like really small. And I don't even know how these things come apart. God, it sucks. We were so close to finishing this build. All right, it's been a few days. We finally got a new radiator. We're going to switch brands to this company. This radiator actually seems like it's built pretty well, although it's very similar to the Corsair one that had a leak. We have that installed now. We're hooking up the plumbing and we're going to check if we have any leaks again. If we don't, we're going to fill it up with fluid. Everything is hooked back up again. Let's check to see if there's any leaks. This is a cheap regulator pump we got off Amazon, and it's designed to find leaks in PC water cooling builds. You can see the needle's not dropping, so I think we're in the safe zone. I don't know how much to put in. I'm really nervous about it. I'm going to put in a little bit at a time, then kind of turn it on, see how things go, and go from there in an iterative approach. Started adding fluid. I haven't seen any issues yet. I'm going to add some more and hopefully we can get this thing filled up and running correctly. I'm just putting my thumb over the fill line for now until we get it all filled up, and then I'll cap this. All right, you ready for round 2? Pretty good, probably needs more. It's getting more full. We just added a bunch more and filled the reservoir again. Let's try it again. Almost. Maybe a little bit more. It's up and running. I haven't noticed any leaks, which is great. I want to top this off a little bit to get rid of some more of the air out of the reservoir. Some of the air bubbles are going away, but you can see where the liquid is traveling through it. Just topping it off a little bit. Hopefully I don't cause an accident. It's hard to see, but you can actually see some of the air bubbles moving around, zooming through the pipes. We just mounted it back on our gamer desk. Let's power it up and see how it works. So we're still waiting on RAM and other cables, and then I got to get the operating system set up and transfer files over. And all that stuff is pretty boring, but we are able to turn it on and see if it's working. We might also add some glitter or something in the pipes to help visualize the movement of the water, because right now you can't really see it moving around. And I'd like to add a little bit more blue to the water so it matches the desk. It's all powered up though, it's working really well. It'll also be cool to grab some data on how cool the CPU is staying, especially when we're playing games, but right now that's probably out of scope for this video. I wonder if you can control these lights to make them stay one color. We have an old iPhone here that we've dedicated to adjusting all the color and everything on the desk. All of the LED lights are controlled through Bluetooth. All of this back here is custom-made storage bins that we did for all of our maker projects. Oh, and one last thing, this just showed up right in time. We had this custom ordered, custom made, custom cut. Oh, wow. But this is the finale of our desk. Oh, that's a perfect fit. There's a lot of glare on the iPhone. In real life, it's not as reflective, but it is really nice. Just want to say thanks for watching. This has been a really fun build. It's taken a long time with a lot of different parts, but it's finally all put together.